certainly have a diversity of different recipes, different foods here to make and try.
We do. One of our team building things are really an interesting thing with that. Last night we had a group here from Cargill, and they were from all over the world. And so it's super cool to get an opportunity to cook French food with a guy from France. And, there's somebody from Africa here, and he's teaching you about spices you've never heard about before, on things that are with his family and how he learned to cook and flavors he loves. And that's sort of the awesome part about what we do, is that you get to meet so many cool people and learn from each other. I think every aspect of cooking is learning from one another.
How does cooking build family relationships or relationships in general? We've got family relationships, you've got corporate. Maybe how does it do it in general, and are there any differences that you've seen between those two?
I think it all ties
groups
back to the same thing, and that food creates memories. I have walked into a restaurant and smelled my grandma's cooking. Instantly I get the whole memory of us being together. I get that instantaneous smell from that. And I think smells and textures and tastes bring memories together. And that part on a family basis, with holidays, I think it's really important to get family to cook together and make a holiday meal, because I know we do that as a family. I'm blessed that I have an awesome family and everybody loves to cook, but we come here and all the kids make all the food.
Really?
We guide them, we give them recipes, we do it along with them, but they are so proud that they have made Christmas dinner. And they remember it. I mean, we've been doing this for years, and it's their favorite memory of Christmas, is that how we all come together and everybody's helping. Some people are making cookies, some people are making appetizers, some people are making side dishes, but we're all doing it together. And that making of a memory is, I could give them $100 gift and next year they'll forget what I gave them. But they're going to remember all of us hanging out and having that family experience together. And I think that's what also happens with our team building events, is you can go to a wild game and have Joe sitting on this side of you and Mary on this side of you, but you're not together as a group, and you're not doing something. You're doing an event, but you're not getting to talk about everything that's going on in your lives with other people while you're doing that type of event. Here, people are like breaking bread together. They're figuring out what they could make in a chopped event, and they're brainstorming together and coming with ideas and trying things together. And having a background with doing lots of team building prior to starting this, I know that when you give somebody an experience, that creates a memory, and they hold on to that for years and years and years. Money, gifts, people forget about that, but if it's an experience and something that has created a memory for them, they'll treasure that forever.
Now, with that corporate team building, how does that transfer into the workplace, do you think?
That's been a cool thing to observe, is that how people act at work very much shows in how they work together in a kitchen. If you have somebody who's really bossy and wants to take over everything in your office, they're going to try and do the same thing here in the kitchen. And what I think is different when you come here is it's an even playing field. Doesn't matter if the CEO's here or the factory workers here and they're in the same room together. They're making a meal together. They're doing the same thing together. And that balancing of roles just builds relationships. It causes them to get to know each other on a whole different level than they maybe would in the office. And you see people sometimes even stepping up and saying things to people that they normally wouldn't say in the office. I think of a woman just a couple months ago was here on a team, and there was a very male chauvinistic, bossy man who was her boss.
Okay.
And kept trying to boss her around on what she was doing and belittling her. And it was interesting because she was really confident with cooking. Mm-hmm. And because she was super confident in that, she stood up to him, and they became more balanced on an even field than they were when they were in the office. And I think he saw her in a different light because she actually spoke up and didn't just take it from him because she felt knowledgeable and confident.
Interesting, yeah. So what have you noticed about people's desire for culinary learning?
Oh, that has skyrocketed over the years. What's really interesting to watch is that it's a very generational shift that has happened to the point where I'm in my 50s. My mom was a stay-at-home mom. There was always dinner on the table when my dad came home from work, to then my generation, I like to cook, I know how to cook, I can feed my family, to then my kids, or the age of my kids now, are like, let's get takeout, not really wanting to cook. And so I think there's been this shift from like the 30-year-olds who grew up with working moms who didn't maybe get the TV dinner generation, I guess,
Sure.
Grew up on TV dinners and fast food sort of thing. I think that they have become more intrigued and interested in making the kind of food that they can get in a restaurant. Like, they go out to the high-end restaurants and they have that experience, but they want to recreate that back at home. So there's been this passion and shift of learning about food, how to prepare food, how you can see everything you ever wanted to know about food on TV somewhere, or YouTube, or a video. And I think that all that's happened over the years has just created kind of a passion for learning from many people, from kids to adults, on wanting to be able to cook more healthy food, be able to save money maybe by cooking at home, instead of going out to eat all the time. Understanding the health benefits more of that. It's just like we're such a more knowledgeable generation about food. I think even from when I first started this, I don't feel like there were as many people who knew as much about food 14 years ago than there are now, because there's so much accessibility to different kinds of food, learning about food. And so I think the passion is there, and people want to learn, and I think kids especially want to learn. I hear comments all the times from kids that my mom is sending me to cooking lessons because she doesn't cook. She doesn't know how to cook.
Interesting.
And I don't want to be like that. I want to know how to cook. And so that's where that like generational shift, I think, is happening, sure. Where the younger generation understands that it's fun to cook. It's it's cool to do it with family and friends, and they want to be good at it. There's all those challenge shows are making kids like obsessed with being awesome cooks and bakers. And
how does cooking prepare people for life success?
One of my favorite things of saying, we talked a little bit earlier about people teaching kids how to play soccer and music lessons and art lessons, and all those things are super important to developing who you become in life. But cooking is truly a life skill. And if you don't learn it and you don't practice it, it affects your health and your relationships throughout your whole life. And so to me, I think it's probably one of the most important skills that you can teach anybody is how to cook, how to be confident in the kitchen, and get passionate and excited about it.
What skills are you seeing? How is that transferring out of the kitchen?
With kids, it's kind of interesting because I'll be honest, I was never the best at math, fractions, hated it. But when I started understanding in a measuring cup, that one cup, there were 4 quarters that made that one cup. And just understanding the math behind that, it made so much more sense to me than just saying, a math problem and figuring it out. But if I could picture it in my head like a measuring cup, and there's 3/3, and it made more sense to me. And I see that with kids too, that fraction-wise, they get that. When we're doing recipes, sometimes we cut a recipe in half, and you have to figure out the math on doing that. When you're making a recipe and it flops, there's a lot of science behind understanding what caused that to flop. And so I think math and science are huge things that help kids develop when they're doing cooking.
Sure.
But it really works on those skills. Adults, I'm still trying to figure out fractions. Confidence is big. The self-esteem kind of ties directly in with confidence. I think that you have to build those things to be good at anything, whether that be cooking or being I don't know, whatever kind of job you want to think of. Yeah. Because I know in my career, the more I have become confident in what I'm doing, and the more I've developed a passion for what I'm doing, the better I am at it. And so whatever you are doing in life, that you can gain as much knowledge that you can about that particular topic, it helps you build your confidence, it builds your passion, and then it enables you to share it with others. So I think that's an important life lesson on everything.
Yeah. So it sounds like it's more of almost an attitude shift as you get the confidence, you're passionate, it kind of radiates and culinarily and beyond.
Yeah, because I think the more that you do get confident in it, the more different things you'll try, the more difficult recipes you'll try, and as you're trying that and your confidence is building, I think your passion is building along with that, because you're creating things, you're probably getting positive reinforcement from the people who get to eat the stuff you're making. Sure. And so I think, I think it's a really important skill that radiates into everything that one does.
So what are some takeaways that people can learn from as they develop their own cooking skills and other skills perhaps?
I think the takeaway is being able to feed yourself and your family, which is super important. The ability to do that is nothing to look lightly on, because it is what's going to build those memories with family. It's going to be how you entertain and interact with friends. I mean, there's so many aspects of our life that revolve around food, and the more you learn and the more you improve your skills and the more you develop your passion, and the more all that just seems to come together when you're around family and friends. Biggest bit of advice would be to don't give up, keep trying, and every recipe you make isn't going to be perfect, and that doesn't mean it's you. Recipes are written by people all over the world, and people find them on the internet, and just because you find it on the internet or in a cookbook does not necessarily mean it's a great recipe. And I think you have to make things, I think you have to adjust things for your own palate, your family's palate, in certain recipes, and just to not be afraid. What's the worst thing that can happen? You gotta throw it away and start over. That's the worst thing that can possibly happen. And so I think that just a willingness to try and a desire to learn will get you very far when it comes to cooking.
So how have you seen your students change with regard to their food attitude as they've come and taken your classes and maybe tried some things at home?
It's always so humbling to hear stories that parents will share with me, but I had such a cool experience happen last weekend. I was out to dinner with a girlfriend, and there was a family sitting kind of across from us, and the little girl kept peeking around the corner and peeking around the corner at me, and finally she said, "Can I just walk over there to her mom?" And she walked over and she said, "Are you Chef Lynn?" And I said, "I am." And she goes, "I took your summer camp cooking class." And she goes, "I had such an awesome time." And then her little brother runs over. And he's like, "Do you remember me?" I was like, "Sure." And he was just a little spitball of fire. And he said, "I couldn't come last year because I was only 6. But now I'm 7, and I'm going to come to cooking camp this year." And I said, "That's awesome. I can't wait to have you guys come back." And then the mother walks over, and she shakes my hand and says, "I don't know if you remember me, but I called you in the winter, and I told you about my daughter being frightened of food, and she wouldn't taste food, that she was, everything I fed her, she would say, 'I'm not going to eat that.'" And she goes, "And you told me that if she came to camp and she saw how the ingredients were put together and she got a chance to do it herself and she saw others eating it, it just could possibly change how she feels about food." And the mom had like tears in her eyes, and she goes, "It has changed our life as a family. She will now go out to restaurants and she'll try new food. She's next to me in the kitchen all the time wanting to show off her knife skills." And she goes, it's been so amazing to see the change that could happen in 4 days of her coming to one of your cooking camps. She goes, "It just really changed her whole attitude." And she goes, "So thank you." And I was like, "Thank you." Made my whole day. I was like, the nicest thing anybody said to me. But I hear that story over and over again about kids either being, disliking different types of food, afraid of food, textures of food. And it's really interesting to observe that if you just let them work with it and you don't push them too much to try things, eventually their thought process on it starts changing, especially when they see their peers enjoying it and loving it, and then they're like, "Well, maybe I should try this, maybe it is good." And that is probably my favorite part of anything that has happened at the school, is being able to make that change in a kid's life and a family's life by just getting them to work with food.
Sure, and just watching that transformation.
Yep.
I'm sure they're different on day 1 versus on day 4.
They definitely are, yeah. Yeah, there's a huge shift. Because it's not often that you make 3 recipes in a setting, right? As a kid, that's a lot of cooking, and they're on their feet, and they're washing dishes, and they're sweeping the floors, and we have them do all the things that it takes to be able to cook in a kitchen. It's their responsibility to put things away, and I think those values are really important to teach kids, so they transfer back to doing that in the home.
Sure. And in that case, the kids are inspiring the parents,
yes,
perhaps. To
yes, exactly.
Cook more.
They got to get their game on a little bit more.
That's right. Lynn, thanks so much for letting us come here
Absolutely.
and share your passion and communicating that passion. And we're excited to see what other classes are coming up over the next months.
Awesome. Thank you very much for the opportunity. I appreciate it.
To learn more about the Way Cool Cooking School, please visit their website at waycoolcookingschool.com. Thanks for joining us on this episode of the Food Experience Unplugged video series. For more information, please visit our website at foodexperienceunplugged.com and be sure to follow us on social media. We look forward to seeing you on Food Experience Unplugged, where food, fun, and memories come together.